We'll just wait just a minute here, guys, make sure everybody's on that wants to be on, and then we'll get started. Hope you guys are all doing great today. Glad you could be with us, and we'll share a little bit about Walla Walla University Aviation. If you have questions as we go on, you can save those either to the end or enter them in the chat function, and we'll try to answer most of those questions towards the end. So I guess we might as well get started. So as I said, my name is Matthew Tolke, or I guess I might not have said that yet. So anyways, my name is Matthew Tolke, and I'm the director of the aviation program for Walla Walla University. And I'd like to just share a real brief kind of some things about Walla Walla University and a little bit about my background and so on. So I'll go ahead and share a PowerPoint with you and kind of talk through a few points as we go. The PowerPoint up, guys?
It is.
Okay, perfect. So Walla Walla University Aviation. So a little bit about myself. I learned to fly because of some good friends' generosity. It was something, aviation was something that, I don't know, as I was growing up, my folks didn't have a lot of money. I really thought aviation would be pretty cool, but I guess I never saw myself pursuing it just because of the expense of it, the expense of not only going to college, but going and spending the money to learn to fly. But I had a couple different friends actually that took me up flying in their small aircraft, and I kind of just got the bug for it. Not only that, but I had a very generous friend who kind of helped me through getting my private pilot rating, and that really lit a fire in me about aviation. I just became really passionate about aviation. So then I decided to continue and learn all I could about aviation, and the next step for me was going to school at the University of Montana in Helena, where I got a degree in aviation maintenance, and I kind of learned about all different types of maintenance on fixed wing aircraft and helicopters and reciprocating engines, jet engines. It certifies you to do pretty much anything on an aircraft as far as maintenance is concerned. And I did some flying while I was there, not a lot of flying. But then as soon as I graduated, I still decided that that wasn't the end of my schooling. I wanted to continue to learn more and get all my flight ratings. And so I decided to go to Walla Walla University, and I'll talk a little bit more as we go on about why I chose Walla Walla University instead of several other colleges and universities that I was looking at the time. And that's where I gained a bachelor's degree in aviation and all my flight ratings up through flight instructor, instrument flight instructor, multi-engine rating, and commercial ratings, and so on. So why did I choose Walla Walla University? The primary other contender, when I was looking at it, I looked at a few different places, but I narrowed it down between Walla Walla University and Embry-Riddle. And I chose Walla Walla University at the end for a few of these factors. Walla Walla University is, I'd say, well known for having a nice Christian environment. And it's not that, the school I went to at the University of Montana in Helena was a good school, and I got a good education there, but there wasn't much of that Christian aspect. And I guess I just had a little bit of a longing to get back around others who were Christians and shared some of those Christ passions. Another reason, though, was an ability to work. I had kind of called and talked to people, and it sounded like there would be an ability to have a job while I was here working, for Walla Walla University. And ultimately, I worked for Walla Walla University the whole time that I was here, became kind of the shop foreman and did a lot of maintenance on our own aircraft, which we do. We do all of our maintenance in-house. So we also, though, do have quite a few jobs, employment opportunities for our students. We have lineman positions where students fuel the aircraft and keep the windows clean and help keep the inside of the aircraft clean and the outside. We also have desk worker positions that help check the aircraft in and out. So for some who might want to work and that helps supplement and give a little bit of money back for all the money you're spending, it's nice to be able to work while you're going to school. Also, we hire pretty much all of our students as soon as you become a CFI, and they are probably the highest highest paid student workers on campus. So that's another nice factor. Although it does cost extra, there are ways to make some money back in the process. Some of my other reasons were the ability to fly aircraft long distance. Other schools like Emory-Riddle really only go to a few airports in the near vicinity just long enough to complete the requirements as far as the ratings are concerned. Whereas Walla Walla University is, as long as you are an appropriately rated pilot, and we have certain rules and regulations about this, but you can take an aircraft from Walla Walla University over the weekend and take, friends or family and fly down to California or something like that. Emory-Riddle would never let you do such long trips. And so I felt like that's a way to continue to kind of gain knowledge and also have fun doing it. I mean, it's a fun experience to be able to travel the country, get out a little bit further, and take Walla Walla University's aircraft while you're doing it. Also, just kind of felt that when I came to visit that the university was doing a decent job of keeping their aircraft well maintained. And especially after I started working here, I felt that they were well maintained aircraft. And I think that's important. It's, when you're flying in an aircraft, you can't just pull over to the side of the road. So it's pretty important that we take really good care of our aircraft. And Walla Walla University also, even back when I started, had a combination of aircraft with glass panels and typical six-pack panels. And if you don't know the differences, we can kind of explain that a little bit later. But the glass panels are what a lot of modern aircraft are going to, modern jets and the airlines and so forth. So it's really good to get some of that integration into your training. One note that I hadn't written down here is we also have a really great simulator that we can do a lot of flight training in and perform emergency procedures and things that you can't do in the actual aircraft. So that's another good factor about Walla Walla University. Also, though, I didn't at the time really have nailed down what I wanted to do. I didn't think I wanted to go airlines, but I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. And Emory-Riddle is primarily a school that the pilots go to the airlines. And Walla Walla University, while we have what's called a pathways program through Horizon, so you can interview at a certain stage through your process, and if you're accepted into the program, it's basically a guarantee that you're going to have a job with Horizon when you get through with Walla Walla University. So We do have some links to the commercial airline industry, but there's also, we have a very broad range of where our pilots go. And I'll get into a little bit of all those different areas as we move on here. But that was kind of another reason that I chose to come to Walla Walla University, is that Walla Walla has a good reputation for pilots doing well in a lot of different areas, not just the airlines. And so that was another reason that I considered. So for more information, and Philip's going to fill you in a little bit, but you can just either type in Google Walla Walla University Aviation, and a link will come up, or you can type in flywallawalla.edu, and you can find a lot of good information. Feel free to contact Philip Glenrange or Matthew Tolke at any time, and Phil will show you through the site a little better later on as we go. So why might you want to choose a career in aviation? Well, for me, it was just how much fun it was. I mean, being able to get in an airplane and having an office space that's a lot different than anybody else's, and flying high performance aircraft that I don't know, there's just something really cool about being able to, especially when you get into large, faster aircraft, push the throttles forward on something that's got thousands of horsepower or, ridiculous thrust behind you, and to just be able to control that power and take it and quickly fly from one side of the country to the next. So for me, that was just kind of a joy to be able to do it, and aviation's been a joy for me ever since. Boeing also, though, good factors that Boeing states that over 800,000 pilots will be needed over the next 20 years, and there simply aren't enough people to fill those positions. What does it mean for the future of aviators? Lots of opportunities with great pay and benefits, and that's gotten a lot better in these recent years. I know there's probably some concerns about where's the industry going, through this whole COVID crisis. And while I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen, I mean, there was a large shortage before this started, and I think the industry, while it may be a little bit slow to spool back up, I would be surprised if in the next year or two we're not back to close to what we were, which is a very large shortage in the aviation industry. So what are some of those careers in aviation? This is just a handful that I'm going to brief over. There's a lot more than this even, and a lot of these areas branch into a lot of subcategories, different companies, and little bit different jobs in different ways. We could take a whole class period just talking about all the different types of jobs, a whole quarter's worth. But there's firefighting, and that's where I went after graduation. I got a job with a company called Neptune Aviation. It's a large air tanker company that drops retardant on fires, and I'll show some pictures of that later on. So there's lots of different kind of niches just in the firefighting industry. There's life flight, hauling people and organs and all types of, different types of things as far as that's concerned, but hauling those around the country as well, and emergency type situations. Airlines, and then kind of freight. There's a lot of the same sort of stuff airlines does, but hauling freight instead of people. And those can range from all the way in fairly small aircraft all the way up to, the largest 747s and larger aircraft. A big Russian-made airplane can haul a ridiculous amount of stuff. Corporate industry and crop dusting, and I'll talk a little bit more about each one of these as we go. Skydiving, all sorts of other little niches as well, just sightseeing flights, pipelines, flying for the oil industry, flying for fish and game, taking pictures of wildlife and low-level counting of elk and deer and all types of stuff like that. there's just, you could go on and on. The list is pretty long. So a little bit about aviation fire, and there's large air tanker pilots, and then there's even what's called VLATs, or very large air tankers. The large air tankers haul about 3,000 gallons of retardant, and that's the type of aircraft I flew. There's seat pilots, which are a bit smaller aircraft that haul just about 1,000 gallons of water or retardant. There's lead plane pilots that, go in and make sure that the route coming into the fire is what they want it to be, and they lead typically those larger aircraft into the fire. There's fire boss pilots, which are and planes, which are, they dip water off of lakes and rivers and any body of water that's big enough. There's also what's called air attack, which I currently do over the summer, which is basically an air traffic control of a fire environment. So we make sure that all the aircraft are staying where they belong and flying their appropriate routes, and so that we're not getting, amidst all the smoke, aircraft flying into one another or flying into a helicopter. Sometimes big fire can get really busy. You may have, not only do we have to worry about the air traffic, but we also need to worry about all the firefighters on the ground. We don't want to drop water or retardant on those guys' heads. It's could be pretty dangerous or even kill someone. So that's what I currently do, just part-time over the summer. And so anyways, these are some pictures of what I did at Neptune Aviation. That's the retardant coming out of the aircraft. And that's the Neptune P2V, an old Navy aircraft. And that's what I used to fly. And that's the red retardant. It doesn't totally stop the fire usually, but it hinders it enough. Unless it's a small fire, it'll put it out. But large fires, it stops things enough that the people on the ground have a chance to catch the fire. Here's a more up-close picture from behind. There's me on top of the wing, gonna put some fuel in it. These planes take a lot more fuel than the aircraft we fly. We're usually pumping over 1,000 gallons of 100 low lead fuel onto this aircraft at once. So sometimes it depends where you're at. Sometimes I'd be sitting up there quite a while just putting gas in the tanks if they didn't have very fast pumps. This is a picture when my son was pretty young and my wife, they'd sometimes follow me on the road. You can see those propellers are pretty big and those engines. Those are great big Curtiss Wright 3350s is what they're called. And they each one put out 3,300 horsepower apiece. So they're not the most powerful radial, but they're getting up there. They're the most produced powerful radial engine that's out there. Then Neptune Aviation started transitioning to this aircraft, which is a BAE 146. And I got to work with this plane a bit as well. And it's a pretty neat aircraft to work with, a more modern cockpit and an FMS, flight management system. And it's a neat plane too. So there's some pictures of it dropping retardant. Here's a picture, I believe this is down in California, now about 7 years ago, that I took. You can see the flames kind of the blue flames coming out of the top of the radial engine's exhaust stack. It kind of depends how you set your power as to how far the flames would shoot out of that thing, but it was kind of pretty neat to see at night. And then the flames coming off the fire. This is the last drop of the day that we made. So just some more pictures of that. I really enjoyed doing that work, but just felt called to the work here at Walla Walla University and to get back into flight training. And I've really enjoyed being back here as well. So this is, when I mentioned fire bosses, this is the type of plane that can dip water. You can see the floats that it's on. It can take water off of rivers and lakes and things like that. It's just a single turbine engine. But it has a pretty powerful turbine engine. I think it would honestly be a pretty fun aircraft to fly. If I had a bunch of lives to live in aviation, I think I'd do one career as a Fireboss pilot because um, it would be pretty fun. This is the type of aircraft I fly now doing the air attack work, which is a twin commander. And we just kind of see all the action happening from above. It's not quite as fun as the low level flying, but it is a little bit safer as well. So there is that part of it. The lead plane, there's a picture of a lead plane, and they're showing kind of and telling the tanker behind it exactly where to drop. So, that's just a real quick brief of fire aviation. And some of the other types of aviation are the airlines, and you have the smaller airlines, which do kind of the smaller, shorter hops and feeder routes, and some of those would be like Horizon, for example. And then you have the major airlines, which would be, Horizon's sister company would be Alaska, and they do a bit longer flights. There's a lot of different airlines out there, and we have graduates that work at most of them. And so it's nice to be able to make contact with those people in those industries and be able to talk to them about the pros and cons. And, also even, we always want to see people behind us coming up be successful as well. And so they're usually willing to write our students a recommendation for coming to that company as well, if that's what they so desire. So it's just a picture of the major airlines, usually a little bit bigger planes, a little bit longer flights, or a lot longer depending. And really another one of the big reasons that I like aviation is just a lot of the diversity. If you want to do really long haul flights, long ways overseas and be seeing those other countries and so forth, it's, you're definitely able to do that. Or if you'd prefer, you're more of a homebody and you like to be home a lot, there's plenty of jobs that fit that end of the bill as well. And I really enjoyed, though, being able to, when I worked for Neptune Aviation, being able to travel the country. And, one day I might be in Texas, the next day Florida, and up to California, Colorado, pretty much anywhere where the fires are burning, we could get dispatched to. And it was just really interesting meeting a lot of different people and seeing all the different country of the U.S. And I mean, in the 7 years that I got to do it, I still was a far cry short of seeing everything the country had to offer, but it was just a really enjoyable experience. So again, the life flight hauling people that are in trouble or organ transplant and that type of stuff. These guys are home usually every night. So that's a good aspect of that job. You usually don't have to be away. And they have bases pretty much all over the country at most major airports and even a lot of smaller airports. Corporate aviation, there's a slew of corporate aviation from great big companies that do all sorts of overseas and within the United States corporate flights, and it's a lot of just people who don't want to deal with the airlines. They have enough money or means that they would rather just go get on a fast jet, and they don't want to sit there and wait an hour and a half. And there are people, even like where I work for Air Attack, there's a guy parked right next to us that has a big fancy hangar, and he has 2 or 3 pilots that work for him. One that flies his helicopter, and then he has a nice corporate G6, and then he has a couple other fancy airplanes. So, there's jobs out there like that where you could just get a job for a certain individual flying their fancy jet and taking them to the Bahamas or wherever they want to go. So it really depends on what suits you the best as far as what you'd want to do. Also around Walla Walla, if you've ever been around here or places like it, there's a lot of agriculture, and that agriculture needs, to have certain things to grow appropriately, and most of it needs to be sprayed with fertilizers and other things to help it grow. And so there's a lot of flying on that agriculture that takes place. And what a lot of people don't realize is it's exciting. You're coming in right over the trees, over people's houses, under telephone wires and things like that. So it's definitely not for those who are who don't like a little adrenaline rush. But it would be exciting flying, and it pays very well to, most guys doing this type of work, they're up over 100,000 a year, if not a couple 100,000 with seniority. So it's not bad for flying around spraying stuff on people's fields. And so that's just some of the areas of aviation, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to Phil now, and he can give us some more insight about a few things. Let me see, I got to get my...
All right. Well, welcome everyone. So my name is Philip Glendrange, and I'm the operations manager for the Flight Center. And I just want to take a few minutes to discuss some of the features of our website, and also some of the equipment you might consider purchasing if you do decide to come here to Walla Walla University and for your flight training. Okay, so here is our website, and it has quite a lot of information for you. First, it kind of details out the different degrees we offer. So we offer 3 different degrees, 2 bachelor's of science degrees, one in aviation technology and the other in aviation management. And the difference between the 2 is basically the business classes you'll take. You'll still get the same pilot certificates, but with the aviation management degree, you will have more business classes, and you actually take enough business classes to automatically get an associate's in business administration by taking the bachelor's of science in aviation management. We also offer an aviation degree in associates, aviation associates major, and that basically takes students through the commercial pilot. But if you want to become a flight instructor and you really want a career in aviation, we recommend most students at least get their bachelor's in aviation. And then for those of you who are curious about aviation but plan to major in something else, we offer an aviation minor, and that will get you your private pilot certificate, and most students will then also get their instrument rating. And basically the difference is the private pilot allows you to just kind of fly for fun. You can carry your family and friends, but you just can't fly through bad weather and clouds. Whereas if you get your instrument rating, then you have that option, and it just allows you to fly more of the year. A lot of students also have questions about our fleet. So if you go here on the side of the page to the aircraft fleet, you can see our fleet. So we currently have 5 Cessna 172s, and this plane will be primarily used for your private pilot training and also your instrument training. And then when you are working towards becoming a commercial pilot and you need that certification in order to get a job, then you're going to be using our Piper Arrow aircraft. And these just have more power. They have retractable landing gear, and they're just a little bit more complicated in how they operate. And they also have these glass panel displays that Matthew mentioned. And then the last bit of your training will be learning how to fly multi-engine aircraft, so aircraft with more than 1 engine. And we utilize this Beechcraft Duchess for that training. So to also help minimize costs for our students, we also have a flight training device with a full wraparound screen and a full-size cockpit. And we utilize this quite a bit for your instrument training. We can simulate different weather and also different emergencies where we can do it in a safe environment by simulating it here on the ground instead of in the cockpit of the aircraft. So we also utilize this in a lot of our lecture classes, and we found it reduces the amount of cost associated for our degree, and it also really helps our students learn the material. Now, I know a lot of you might be questioning how much the aviation program costs, and I won't lie to you, it is fairly expensive, but we've tried to keep our costs in line with most other universities, or try to basically be cheaper than others. And we've kind of laid out the costs for each of our aircraft. So these are hourly rates. They do include fuel. So you pay this and you have no other expense, no maintenance, no fuel. And then if you're flying with a flight instructor, then that is where this flight and ground instruction hourly figure comes into play. Throughout your training, you'll basically be, if you're planning a 4-year degree, you're going to be getting all of these certificates. So if you look here, there's a difference between what it actually costs and what you'll actually pay. And let me kind of explain the difference here. A lot of students ask what this scholarship is. And basically how it works is you're going to be taking flight classes and you're having to pay tuition from Walla Walla University to take those flight classes. And you're also going to have to pay the hourly rental rates of the aircraft. And so the university didn't feel that it was fair to charge both tuition for the flight class as well as the hourly rate. So when you enroll in a flight class, you actually get some of that tuition you paid for the flight class put towards your rental rates for the aircraft. And so that is what we use in what we call the scholarship. So when you're actually looking at these prices, what you are estimated to pay is actually this out-of-pocket figure. So you're basically going to be getting your private pilot your freshman year, instrument sophomore, commercial junior, and then working on your multi-engine and becoming a flight instructor your senior year. That's the general progression of our students. And so if you average it out, it's about $15,000 beyond normal tuition to take aviation. But the good news is we have 100% placement of our graduates, and a lot of our graduates do get high-paying jobs. So even though it is expensive, it is an amazing career, and there is a very good job market for pilots. Now, I just have a few more minutes. I just want to talk a little bit about our training software. So we have a website where students can see where their lessons are scheduled, and they can also see who our instructors are, and also they can keep track of their flight training. And if you do decide to come here to Walla Walla and do flight training with us, you'll get a login to this website. Also, equipment that we have our flight students purchase. We want you to have some type of tablet. We recommend iPads. Now, there's multiple types you can purchase. A lot of students prefer the iPad mini because it's smaller and it can fit on your knee easier. The main thing you want to look at, though, is what kind of equipment it has in regards to connectivity. So if you look here, the Wi-Fi plus cellular, you want to make sure that you get that model because it has a built-in GPS, which a lot of apps use for flight training. So we won't tell you which iPad to buy in regards to models, but we do recommend that you purchase one with cellular because it has this built-in GPS. And then for headsets, there are quite a few different options, and I'm not going to take a lot of time to discuss each option. The main things to know about headsets, there's two main types. There's what we call passive headsets, where basically the sound is muffled by the design of the headset, so by the ear muffs. And then there's actually headsets that actively noise cancel the sound around you. And they are more expensive, but they do also reduce fatigue on pilots. So a couple of the main noise canceling headsets that a lot of students purchase are Bose A20 headsets or Lightspeed Zulu headsets. And if you're wanting a cheaper option, a good brand is David Clark, and they provide a very reliable passive headset. The main thing when you're purchasing one of these to look for is that you purchase one with a dual plug design, which all our aircraft utilize. So again, whenever you're looking for a headset to utilize for flight training, again, you can compare price, look at ratings and reviews, and you can choose one. But I would say the three main brands that most of our pilots use are Bose, Lightspeed, and David Clark. Now, I know I kind of went through that pretty quickly, but I just want to give you each some time to ask some questions. And before we do that, one of our current students and flight instructors, Bo Raposo, is with us here. And I just want to give him a chance to kind of share his view of our flight program.
Hi, all. So as Phil mentioned, my name is Bo Raposo. I am a senior aviation management major. And like he was also talking about, you can get a business associate's degree off of just being a aviation management major as well, which is super awesome. So I'm working on that right now. Currently, I'm a flight instructor. I work for the university, which has been great. And what's awesome is I get to work with all you. One of the really cool things about being a student here, especially at Walla Walla, is that you get to use the planes on the weekends or whenever they're available. A lot of other flight schools will only give you flight training in them, but here you can rent them if they're open for the weekend, take them. So 2 quick stories. I have flown all the way down to Santa Rosa, California. I task force deaned at a school down there, was able to fly down there and visit them for a little bit. And I don't know if you like basketball or not, but last year when the Blazers were in the playoffs, I was able to fly down into Portland International Airport, take the tram to the Blazer game, and see Damian Lillard hit a game-winning 3 and series-winning, which was pretty bomb diggity. On top of that, I think probably one of the biggest pluses and biggest benefits that Walla Walla has, especially with its aviation department, is just all the people. So the instructors, all of them are Christian, and they're all here to help you. We know aviation is expensive, so that's why we try to motivate you and teach you well and help you with your self-study habits to be able to become the best pilots that you can in a nice Christian way. Some other flight schools don't always have those types of people. Some are, no joke, kind of grumpy and not the greatest, to say the least. I've seen a few. But here I can almost guarantee you that everyone that you run into is going to have a smile on their face.
Thank you, Bo. So I think at this time we'll just open it up for questions. So there's a question about what we should bring checklist. So typically over the summer quarter, Matthew and I will be, we've got an email that we'll send out to all of our incoming freshmen, and we'll detail all the equipment that we recommend that you purchase. And because again, we do try to get our students flying as soon as possible. Since usually your best weather is fall and spring quarters, we try to get students flying fall quarters. So if you can come with your iPad and headset and fully prepared, it makes your training go a lot smoother. All right. Another question, can you take the plane out your first year as a minor? So yes, once you basically, part of your flight training, so the nice thing about aviation is a little different than driving your car. You can actually solo the plane before you're a licensed pilot. You just have to have that privilege. And so basically, the end of your second class is when you learn how to, well, basically you get certified to solo the plane. So basically, if you start your training fall quarter, by spring quarter, you will be soloing the aircraft and taking it on your own.
And to answer the next couple questions, it looks like, what if you come in with a private pilot rating? We accept up through a private pilot rating, excuse me. So if you've already obtained those certificate, we'll accept that, and you won't have to take the classes or the flight classes associated with that. Just a little paperwork to, as far as that's concerned. How does the business account work? I'm not sure exactly what you're asking about the business account. The one that you pay for your flight hours. So the way we have it it worked out now is that each flight class has a portion of that cost. When you enroll for the class, you're paying for all your flight time right up front. So you need to work with academic enrollment and the financial services if you need to get loans and things like that, which I will say, as a student coming here to Walla Walla University, I didn't have any help from my family or anything. And so that was kind of a big concern to me. How am I going to come up with all this money? The people in our financial offices were very great to work with and helped me to get the loans I needed very quickly. And so that's what I'd suggest as far as that's concerned. But that money goes into basically from that flight class goes into a separate flight account, and it's kept track of on that program that Philip showed, which is Flight Schedule Pro. And so you can kind of see it's a little bit behind there. It's not always 100% accurate, but it gives you a good general idea of where you're at in your funding. And as long as you stay within the typical course requirements, that money will get you through the course. If you, it's another, I'd say, good thing about Walla Walla University. Some universities, if you don't make it through the course and that amount of money spent, basically have you start all over again. In most cases, we don't make that happen, but you can. It may cost you more money if for whatever reasons you're lagging behind others, but we still try to make everybody successful and succeed in their, whatever that flight class is. And we have very few people, there's always going to be a few people for whatever reason that decide to do something else, but very few people that decide they don't want to do aviation or fail out of aviation. So I feel like we're pretty successful helping students move forward. Hopefully that answers your question. So the scheduling, I handle typically most of the scheduling except for summer flight classes. We do offer flight classes over the summer as well. And typically how that works is I keep a specific folder, and if you send me an email and let me know preferred days and times that you want to fly, I try to fit that in the schedule. But usually our flight lesson slots are 2 hours long, and I try to schedule people between 2 to 3 lessons per week is the typical. Sometimes students will get really ambitious and be flying like 4 times or more a week. And we try to work with primarily what you want, but you also have to meet the requirements of the class. For those students, usually, surprisingly, I usually only have about half a dozen students who request specific times. And so the rest of the students, I just pull up their academic schedules, and I'm just going to fit everybody into the flight schedule using academic schedules, and I just pick free times that you're not in any other classes, and I schedule you for those flight lessons. So and then you get emails, and it's important to check Flight Schedule Pro, especially at the beginning of the quarter, kind of often, to make sure you understand where those flight lessons are scheduled. But once they're scheduled, typically, unless you want them to change, they're pretty much set there for the rest of the quarter. So the path from graduation to firefighting and those career steps and costs, that's a good question. It really shouldn't cost once you have graduated. I mean, once you're done with school here, that coin should flip. A lot of the industry now is actually like Horizon Air offering, and that it changes over time and so forth. but a lot of the industry is offering like $20,000 sign-on bonuses and things like that. And even first-year pay is fairly decent. I was a bit lucky in that I was able, because of my maintenance ratings and my degree from the University of Montana. I initially started with Neptune Aviation as a crew chief and doing maintenance on aircraft, and then transitioned into the flying position. Most people who are, only a very rare few people would go that route to get into the fire industry. A lot of the pilots that flew at Neptune either went and flew up in Alaska for a few years hauling freight or things like that, and I actually did that for a short period of time as well, just in the off season when I wasn't working at Neptune. Or even flying for the airlines, hauling freight with Ameriflight or a company like that. Those are all good opportunities, and usually it'd probably take you I would probably recommend most people to spend enough time to get some captain experience or left seat experience in another industry other than fire, and then try to transition over to the fire industry, having the types of skills that will hopefully get you to the captain seat flying fire fairly quickly. Because there's kind of a lot of pay scale difference. I mean, starting pay in the fire industry is not bad. You can make $100,000 or more the first year just as a co-pilot in the right part of the industry. And captain pay, though, you could, starting captain's pay, you could double that. So it's nice to be able to move forward quickly. But, I'm more than willing to talk to students in a lot more detail about the correct steps to take if that was your calling. But usually after graduation, you're at least making money by flight instructing or getting freight hauling jobs, or there's a lot of other jobs that are, people might consider time building jobs, to then get yourself to ultimately where you want to go, whether that's the major airlines or fighting fire. And our simulator, it's a Frasca simulator. And so that's the company that makes that. Let's see, am I missing any other questions, Phil?
I don't see any. So again, on our website, if you go to the faculty page on the side of so you've got a little navigation bar on the side, and if you click on faculty, you can see Matthew's email and also my email. So feel free to reach out, send us emails. I think maybe even our cell phone numbers are listed there. So if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to talk to you about our program. So just also to let you know that there is another session starting at 7 o'clock tonight, and you can sign up on the main page for the university days. So again, thank you all for joining us today. And again, if you do decide to do your flight training here at Walla Walla University, we hope to see you fall quarter.
Thanks, guys.